And
Sweating.
might find some fun stuff that comes through. I like the pie. It's like a centerpiece.
Should we put this back just a little?
Yeah. Sometimes it's like ridiculous how wonderful it is to be with you.
All right.
Okay. Do you want to start this or?
Oh, I forgot.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, my goodness.
My goodness.
Oh, Lordy. All right. Hello, all.
Hey, friends and family.
So much love and so much gratitude for you all. Praying for you every day.
Every day.
So today we're going to discuss. What are we discussing today?
We are discussing the value, importance, and I guess the healthy ways of working with our memory, of working with revisiting moments of our life so that we can heal, so that we can purify, or even just become aware of why we act certain ways, why we feel certain things.
And why we have certain thoughts.
Yeah.
And what parts of our childhood triggers those thoughts, actions, and habits.
Right.
And so really looking at that stuff and kind of like going to the depths of our being to unravel why we are the way that we are. And then can we choose to maybe shift our thoughts, patterns, and habits with this new awareness?
Yeah. And a lot of times too, what seems to happen, we'll get into it, we'll get really detailed into it, I think. I feel that coming. But a lot of times too, like as you revisit and as you have these like realizations of like, oh my God, I acted this way today because of what happened 30 years ago. Wow. And that action was something that repeated throughout my life, and that's what led me to feel like that's part of my personality and that's part of my being, and that's true, but it's not forever. That's the beauty of this kind of work, is to know that we are not bound by our habitual behaviors or our habitual thought patterns. We're not bound by them. We can set ourselves free.
And a lot of these habitual thought patterns and habits that are not serving you, that are coming from fear, are not true. They're not truth. And they're usually stemming from, so this is kind of where we're getting at, is that these like fear-based thoughts and habit patterns are usually based from trauma in the childhood.
Yeah.
And that trauma it doesn't have to be like a huge traumatic event. It could be like a very small and subtle memory that was still had a lot of effect on your being. So really noticing these thoughts, and then you can ask yourself, okay, when was the first time I felt this way? Where is this thought coming from? So where should we begin this conversation?
Maybe we can start with like triggering moments.
Okay.
And then like how that, so my knowledge base a lot and my just perception that I've chosen to like peer through as we get into this time is karma. So but I'll try and be as neutral as I can, just because I know not everybody understands that well. But anyway, if you think of like energy and life experiences, like life is like a pool, right? Like a lake or something like that, a pool of water. And like major events create like a splash in that water, and then there's ripples after the splash that like flow outward, and then they hit the banks of that river, and then they bounce back and they actually come back to you, right? And this is like this is like our life experiences. Like, so for example, I'm 7 years old. I have this experience that impacts me, and that's a splash in the pool, right? And then that ripples out into the universe, into the world, and it touches the people that were a part of that experience. And then as I go through my life, so now I'm 8 years old, for example, and that experience, that ripple comes back to me in another moment where that ripple is triggered, that moment is triggered, and then I act out of that again. It creates another splash. And everybody that I'm involved with in that moment, a year later, and then so on through our lives. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes. And then I feel like the more that we kind of like act in the same way, the ripples almost get a little bit deeper or bigger.
And then, exactly, that was my next point to come up with, because before you know it, you're 29 years old and you're like going like this, splashing in the pool every day. You're just like making this huge mess. You know what I mean? And that's what happens when we don't look at this stuff.
Yes.
We can look at like times in our lives where we were just like I know for me, like my 20s, most of them were like crazy. You know what I mean? And it's because all of that karma, all those little subtle splashy moments collected and were like came right up to the front, and I was just pounding on those waters, and creating all kinds of wildlife experiences, and that's when things get like too far.
Yeah, wow. So this really shows how, like, if you're not aware of this can create and spiral out into like really creating your life. This can like carve out your entire life in a direction that you don't want it to if you're not aware of these subtle small things that happened when you were really young.
Right.
For example, when I was really young, this was a realization I had during ceremony. When I was young, my mother and father split up when I was like 3 years old, and no one communicated with me about like why that was happening. I was just confused, and my dad left the house, and I thought it was my dad's fault. And so my dad would want to hang out with me, and I would refuse to go with him for a little while because I thought that he left us, And so I kind of like shunned him and didn't let him in. And then he kind of slowly, in a way, like bribed me to hang out with him again and stole me back with his beautiful love. He's such an amazing father, And he would like buy me like stuffed animals and take me on cool things and just kind of like build that trust again within me. But then I was shown our relationship now, and I thought that was all kind of like gone, I thought, oh, we mended our relationship, we have a beautiful relationship, and on like on the surface, we have a great relationship. But if you really go like to the depths, if you go beyond the surface level, we only really hang out when there's like food involved, and we don't really talk about that deep of stuff. And so this just shows me like, wow, there's a lot here that rippled out from that moment, from that like resentment that like I know wasn't him, but it's like still there because I haven't chose to like fully embrace him and fully be there for him and fully mend that. There's still like that little bit of resentment there. And it has nothing to do with him, but yet it's affecting our relationship. And if I didn't become aware of it, our relationship would have just continued to spiral and separated. But now that I'm aware, I can make positive change by taking small steps of action, like, hey, how are you? Can I support you in some way?
That is so, so powerful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because that speaks to like what a really, I think, valuable, I don't want to say lesson, but a really valuable like takeaway from this talk is to look at there's never anybody to blame. Like, life is happening, and this situation, just as an example, if I may use it, with your father like didn't do anything wrong, and even after like healing it, there's still something there that's affecting your relationship with probably not just him, but other men too, maybe. It's possible for that.
Absolutely. It's definitely trickled out into my relationships with all the men.
Yeah.
Because I was looking for a father figure in the men. I was looking for like this support and this love and all of these things that my father could have given me, or now I'm learning that I can give myself. Yeah, but I like search for that in relationships.
Yeah, and that's an amazing thing of how much of an effect this little dynamic of awareness has on our lives. You know, if we can trace back these moments, if we can take a moment just as an example where these feelings come up, whatever it is, the trigger moments, right? If we could take these moments and just stop and then trace them back as far back as we can and relate them to the other moments in our lives, just to follow those ripples, basically, is what I'm saying. If we could follow those ripples back to the origin, we can really pull that out of...
Can I take this one, or you want to like a
Oh,
box?
maybe a little box.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. If we can do that, just enjoy that moment. We have the sweetest waitress. Just wanted to say that. She's wonderful.
Beautiful vegan restaurant.
Yeah. Let's just do a little thing here. What's the name of it?
Indomitos in Uvita,
Uvita,
Costa
Costa Rica.
Rica.
Do you want anything else?
Gracias.
We'll take did you want a chocolate or something?
Yeah, I might. We'll go up there to do the check.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anywho.
If we can trace back these ripples to their origins, and this takes time. Like, I won't get into too much detail about it. Maybe right now, maybe later, if it's appropriate. But just last night, I literally did this with something that came up for me in a moment. Right, I had a trigger moment, and then I was blessed enough to have somebody there and Lexi there to like really be supportive of me of doing that trace work back. And I had some verbal guidance too, which someone who was trained in this way just so happened to be there. It was amazing. So anyway, I had this beautiful container held for me, and the reason I'm bringing that up is because the moment, I didn't even tell you this yet, but the moment where both of you said, take all the time you need, there's no time here. That's when I really felt comfortable and really felt I can open up and really get into the work. So I want to mention that here, if you're going to go into this in whatever way, make sure that you don't say, well, I have to be somewhere, you know, or I have to go do something. If when this comes up, if it's appropriate, really take the time and give yourself the time that's necessary to do this trace work back, to go as deep as you can, if you have the availability for it, you know, whatever. But I'm just saying it's really valuable to have that container of as much time as it takes and as deep as you need to go. Allow that to happen, because when you get to the root, because what happened for me was I got to what I thought was the root, a story came through, the memory came through, and I said, ooh, this was a moment that I remember that's related to this other moment. Went there, but it turns out it actually even went a little bit deeper than that too. And then noticing the repetition throughout the life, you can look at that, and then what you do is you can just say prayers to those moments. You can spend time with those other aspects of yourself because they're alive. You know, for me, it was when I was 7 years old, and that being is still alive. It's not like that 7-year-old boy disappeared. He's still alive in my body. And that's really, really important to acknowledge. And that little boy wants to communicate something. You know, that little boy went through something and is stuck in that moment of time, right? Because time is non-linear. Time is not even like real in the way that we perceive it as like it goes. But as far as the dream world, the fifth dimensional realm, and I'm not going to get too into that, but there's moments of life that are stuck on a loop. And that little 7-year-old boy was stuck reliving that moment over and over and over again. And anytime in this 3D, you know, let's say that's 5D, let's say this 3D moment that triggered that, it's access to that other part in time and existence. And there's time you can actually go there and visit that being and heal that moment and set it free.
Yes.
And it's absolutely profound.
Yes.
Absolutely profound.
Yes. Because within that moment, when you go back and commune with that younger part of yourself, you're giving that younger part of yourself what you needed in that moment to truly be able to heal and release that.
Right.
So that's what's like so powerful about this, is that you become what you needed in that moment, and that you're able to provide your younger self with that, and you no longer are like just, you know, pushing the feelings and the emotions away and just kind of like pushing your younger self away. For me, I held a lot of judgment towards my younger self. And so I was just like, that younger self, she was fucking out of her mind. She was crazy. You know, just like so much judgment on my younger self, these younger parts of myself. And I did this during ceremony as well. I went back to a time where I was just like, I was out of my mind, and I still hold a lot of judgment towards myself for that time. And being able to go back and give myself what I needed, which was just like comfort and trust. I realized that so much of it was coming from a place of not being able to trust myself. That's why I was so out of my mind. And so I went back to that time, and I was able to just give Lexi what she needed, and also like ask for forgiveness for judging her for so long, and really being able to see that she had so much wisdom within her. There's nothing wrong with her, and I could really just commune and make amends with that part of myself, and invite the parts that I love about Lexi to come back and to join me in life, rather than trying to push her down and suppress her and judge her. You know, no more of that. Like really embracing all of the younger parts, all of the parts of ourselves.
Wow. Beautiful.
So that we can truly be our greatest expressions of ourselves.
That's what it's about. That's what it is. It's like, and also being able to get to a place like we're happy. You know, like as often as possible, being in a state of love, really, more than happiness.
Right.
You know, happiness I think is a little overrated, and needs greater definition. But being in a state of love, I think, is something that we can all say that happiness is included with that.
Yes, love and joy kind of go hand in
Peacefulness.
hand.
You know, like we can't be in a state of love and not be peaceful at the same time, right? Maybe that's a whole nother talk.
Yeah, like, you could be in a state of love and feel all the things,
Yes.
but you can come back to love. Like love never leaves you, and I think that's like
centered there,
the biggest thing is that you're centered there. Yeah, so you're like very rooted down into the earth. Nothing can like truly like push you over and knock you down.
Right.
You know, because you're rooted in love, so you can feel all these feelings, and you can actually be grateful for the grief and for the triggers and for the sadness, because you're rooted in love.
Yeah.
And so it kind of all comes back to that.
Really. This is where I think all of us, whether we know it or think about it or not, this is where we all, I think, want to be, is in that love state. And it's this is one of the ways that we can really access that and live there regularly, if not ultimately all the time, would be a goal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's about just like really chipping away, and the value in, you know, because one of the things that comes through is how important it is, how important acceptance is. You know what I mean? To like accept the feelings that come through, and instead of denying them and say, I don't want to feel that, because I almost did that last night. I like got up to leave the group, you know. I got up to walk away because there was something that came through, and I didn't really know how to work with it in the moment, you know. And so I was actually proud of myself for excusing myself, you know, and doing that. That was me taking a step of like, this isn't really working out for me in whatever way, so I'm going to just step away peacefully.
Yeah. But there was also a action so that we knew that something had come up, and so that like if you were willing, we could provide a space for you. We could like kind of stop the conversation and provide a safe space for you to feel comfortable in exploring what came up.
Yeah.
Whereas if you didn't do that and you didn't honor yourself, we wouldn't have known, and we just would have continued, and then we wouldn't have got to the root of that trigger. So I'm so proud of you for honoring yourself and like taking action towards leaving, and then being so strong enough to actually stay and talk about it.
And do that, yeah.
Yeah.
And the gratitude goes both ways. And you know, you guys really invited me to open up to just open that thing up, whatever it was, open that trigger up and really look into it. And you guys really supported me in that way. So there's a lot around that of what we just talked about there. Of like, one, when you feel the trigger, I am proud of myself for dealing with it the way that I did, because it's not like I got mad at anybody. You know, I didn't even express any anger. I just said, I just think I need to go do something else. And that was really a great way of serving myself. You know, maybe there's an even better way of serving that, maybe, but I feel really good about what I did because it exposed, like you said, to you guys that something was going on within me. And then you guys, just because you are amazing and you love me, said, well, what is it that's going on? Do you want to talk about it? We're here for you. So there's another message there of surrounding yourself with people that would do that for you. Because it's really a miracle to be supported in that way, where like I honestly wasn't ready to look at that moment. And that's why that moment happened. It happened again because it needed to let me know I'm here and I need to say something. And it's giving me the opportunity, that trigger is the opportunity to go and look and do that trace work. And then just because I had a safe container, I was really, really able to go into that and really do some tremendous healing.
So beautiful.
For so many aspects of myself. And it wasn't just the little 7-year-old boy, it was the 14-year-old version that experienced a trigger that kept that ripple going, that splashed again, that when I was 21, it splashed again, and then it healed all of those moments. It traced literally all the way back, and who knows, they might even go back past this incarnation. I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
I'm sure it does. We don't heal alone. We heal all together. This could have branched off into my mother and father, and helped heal them in some way that I'll never know about. In that
and it
instant,
usually does.
Usually does.
Yeah. When we heal these parts of ourselves, it usually trickles out like that same ripple effect, to even just energetically, to those who we're connected with, our family members, our friends, our ancestors, generations before and after. When we're healing these parts of ourselves, we are doing tremendous work for the entire world, really. Wow, so beautiful.
Yeah. Can I just mention quickly? I'll let you finish. But I just want to say I love what you said about that ripple effect works both ways. That's really important, I think, to acknowledge. So it ripples with those toxic splashes, but it also ripples with those playful, like we healed it. That's a ripple effect also. That's when we start to really shift our karma. That's when we start dancing in the pool as opposed to like violently doing whatever it's splashing around, and then we're having like this beautiful experience with life. That's the experience of doing this kind of work, this path, of cleansing the karmic lines and all that kind of stuff. It becomes this beautiful dance with life, where even painful stuff as it comes up, that's part of the dance.
And it feels so good, and it actually turns into joy.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's so, so beautiful.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I wasn't thinking of that. Thank you. I think that's vital.
Yeah, and this stuff is so important because we go around perceiving life and reality in a way that is tainted or delusional because of these triggers. And so, like, just for example, I could be projecting my dad stuff onto you, and the way that I view your actions or words towards me. They could be so loving, but yet I still see something wrong with them.
Wow.
Just as like an example.
Wow.
Like I could still be projecting my experiences from my past onto you and find something that annoys me or makes me angry or triggers me in some way just because you are like taking the role as like a protector figure for me.
Right.
And so I'm projecting, and so this just shows like how important the work is to do, because I'm kind of pushing you away in this circumstance. I'd be pushing you away and not allowing you to truly come in, not truly allowing love in because of a past experience that I was subconsciously holding on to, but I wasn't even aware of. So I'm just blaming you for this stuff that is deeply rooted within me. And so I just wanted to say that example because I feel like that's, you can really now kind of take this into account in your life. Who are you judging? Who are you kind of like thinking nasty thoughts about, or what is someone doing that annoys you or like triggers you in some way that you're thinking, oh, it's them. They're this and they're that. When you think like that, take a moment to really look inward and think about what we're speaking about here. Because I believe most of the time when we are projecting onto someone else, it's something that is deeply rooted within us. And you don't have to blame yourself for it either. It's just something that now you have the awareness to go and look at. And now with that awareness, you can create huge shifts in your life. And this is going to heal so many relationships and really shift the perception of your entire reality.
Wow. Amazing. So right on with that. And again, what Lexi just said just really speaks to like the value and the gravity of this type of work, you know, because like you said, most, if not all, of our judgments outwardly are because we're trying to project somewhere else because we're not looking at ourselves. So every time, every single moment of blame, you know, is a moment or an opportunity to turn inward. And like you said too, which is really important, is the blame thing needs to dissolve completely. So it needs to dissolve outwardly and it needs to dissolve inwardly. We need to like completely erase the action of blame within our being.
Yes.
And take it as when you start to feel that, okay? And when I mean erase, I mean like when it starts to come through and you start to feel a judgment outward or inward, whatever it is, take a sacred pause. Take a sacred pause and look inside yourself and just ask why the feeling is coming up. Why is it arising? And then memories will come. You know, this is something that I realize is when you open up the opportunity to look at this stuff, memories come up. And it's awesome because these little bubbles of time pop into view, and then you can look at them. This is what happened to me last night. I was able to look at it and relate it to the current present moment and be like, wow, okay. And then more bubbles might show up, and then you get this opportunity to really be like, wow, and see what the thread is that laces all those little pearls together. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And again, like so important what Lexi just said is because it frees us from how we treat other people and how we treat ourselves. And if we're operating and doing this projection thing, then it literally spreads the karma around. Like I said earlier, that little splash, the ripples radiate to whoever's involved with us, and then they carry that too. They make more ripples, and that radiates out to all the people that they know. You just see how this spreads?
Yes.
You see how this kind of thing spreads?
Yeah.
So the practice is you're doing so much more of a service than just for your own healing. You're doing a service for everybody that you come in contact now with. Just because you have the practice, not necessarily even those specific healings that you do, yes, those too, but because you have a process of working with your triggers, you don't splash anymore. You stop splashing. You have a moment where you want to go like this and you stop. And maybe you put your hands to prayer. And maybe you say something sweet. Maybe you have a conversation. Maybe you say thank you to the person that triggered you for helping you discover something about yourself. And you literally change the world.
And so we're talking about alchemizing this fear-based kind of life into love. And so then once we alchemize this to love, our ripples become love and joy and happiness. And then we're spreading love, spreading it all over the place through our actions, through our smiles. Yeah, I did this. I wasn't a kid actually. I was like 17.
Oh, cool.
And that was the first time I did acid. And I was like, I can spread love through my fingertips by going like this. Just like so joyfully and innocently, and I really was. I remember in that moment, and I was going like this in the middle of a music venue. A woman came to me and she just said, she looked at me. I had no idea who she was, and she went, "Thank you so much."
Wow.
I didn't say one thing to her. All I was doing was spreading love through my fingertips, and she felt it. So just like,
sorry.
Yeah. But yeah. So we're alchemizing. We're alchemizing like fear and all of this into love, and we can now spread love.
Right, instead of it is. And something too to note is that this process is reciprocal. So the karma thing, the energies of all of this stuff is like you literally attract the perfect people into your life, and you literally attract the perfect words for them to say to trigger you. Right? So this is something that we do for each other. We come into contact with specific beings because of this. This is the magnetism of karmic energy, where we come together and somebody says those 3 little tiny words, and all of a sudden you're like, have all these feelings coming through. And if we have mindfulness around this, if we have awareness around this, if we have a process around this, then we can really like alchemize. I can't think of a better word. You know what I mean? Where we can take something that has the potential to be toxic and turn it into gold, to turn it into something really beautiful.
Yes. So this is a divine opportunity. To be triggered is a divine opportunity, and you have the opportunity to alchemize it or create bigger ripples of the same toxic behavior.
Right.
And then that'll just keep on cycling in your life until you learn kind of and alchemize, or it'll just keep on rippling.
Right.
And so to have this awareness, you really get to create a big change in your life.
Big change.
And it's really beautiful.
Big change. And one thing at a time. You know, it's not like we have to like heal our whole being all at once.
No, and
you know,
I don't even think that would be possible.
I don't think it'd be possible or enjoyable or safe.
Or necessary, really. You know,
Yeah.
life is such a beautiful journey, and to be able to this is what life is about.
This is what it's about. You know, it's really about learning ways to have a healthier relationship with yourself and the whole environment around you, so that everything settles into this space whenever you're around. If you're on this vibration, everything settles into this harmony. You know, and it feels good to be in harmony. It's like when everybody sways together, you know, it feels really good, you know, or when at least there's complement. What's the word? Entrainment.
Okay.
Yeah, it happens with mothers and their babies, where like when a mother holds their baby close for a long period of time, their hearts will entrain, where they'll because the baby's heart is smaller than the mother's, they won't beat in sync at the same time, but they'll do it where it's rhythmic. They'll actually beat in a way that like they link up together. Yeah, and we end up entraining with everything that's around us. So we fall into, again, it's not an exact replica of what we are. It's not an exact wave vibration of what we are, but it's something that harmonizes. It's something that sings. It's something that is created in a way that's just beautiful and lovely. And when we tap into this vibration of love and beauty, we attract love and beauty into our lives that are it's the karmic thing never changes as far as how it works, but what it works with is what changes. Right? So you're either working with the toxic way and doing that kind of jam, or you're on the love vibration.
Yeah.
And then you have this like life just becomes this beautiful symphony.
Yeah, and like you were saying before, even if you are radiating love, you still may attract exactly what you need to bring up another trigger that you weren't aware of, and that's like a part of it. But we're gaining these tools now so that when we are triggered, now we can alchemize it.
Right.
And so that's like the beauty of this work, is that like it's not like triggers are going to disappear and you're never going to have them again. They're going to continue for the rest of your life. You're going to have stuff come up, and that's what's so fun and beautiful, because now we know how to turn it into love and to learn from it and to grow from these triggers and to really communicate, and then the triggers turn into a deeper connection with that person,
Right.
deeper relationships, and deeper love.
Deeper love. That's what it's about. And when we remember that when we're triggered, you know, that even alone, if we know like that, that's the reason we get triggered. You know, the reason we get triggered isn't to do that splashing. It's just trying to tell us something. It's just trying to show us. And if we know, this is something we've learned firsthand, as when we allow ourselves to like perceive the trigger in the right way of truth, because I think that's what we've really unlocked, is the truth about the trigger and the truth about why, and karma. You know, we've unlocked the truth of why it exists and why we experience feelings and emotions. You know, is for this service. And when we know that, maintain that knowledge when they come up, when the feelings arise, it makes it so much easier to work with. It's like, oh, because it changes from like, ow, I'm feeling, to ooh. I get to search myself for something, and if it's in relation with another person, you're like, wow, it's like, ooh, I get to get closer to this person.
Yeah.
I get to learn something about them because you share the story. You know, you share the trauma with the person, and then like, you know, you ever hear somebody share some traumatic experience? The first thing we feel is love and compassion most of the time. You know what I mean? A lot of the time we end up being like, oh my God, wow, I know you better now. I can love that whole other part of you that I didn't even know existed. You know, and that's a magical feeling.
Yeah, when someone opens up and shares that part of themselves, we kind of innately open up and we're like, oh, I'm a little bit safer now. I'm safer to open myself up and be more vulnerable with this person now. They don't have it all figured out, maybe. Maybe they're a little bit like me, you know?
Right. It's a refreshing feeling.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
What do you think? Anything else alive for you?
I mean, what I keep kind of popping up into my head is that beautiful moment that we had when the trigger arose, and we were able to like dig up so much more because of it.
The most recent one before the ceremony?
Yeah.
That was powerful.
That was so powerful.
You want to talk about that a little?
I think I want to talk about it.
Yeah,
a little
do
bit.
it.
Yeah.
Open it up.
So this kind of ties into like I have these like innate, let's say, or not, these little judgments in my head from these rooted memories of my childhood trauma that like caused me to create like little like, I don't know what to call it, little pokes at you.
That's good.
For not really doing anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he would say something and I would just be like, I would want to be like, have my opinion. I would want my voice to be heard or something. And then that would poke him. And so we were just kind of like poking each other and not talking about it.
Yeah,
you know? Like, or poking might not even be the right word, but like kind of pinching.
Little pinches.
Little pinches that weren't being communicated about.
And not like the cute I love you pinches.
Yeah, like the annoying pinches.
Yeah.
And so and so he finally like spoke up about it. He was like wide open after your first ceremony with grandma.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I feel like I need to communicate with you. I feel like my heart is closing. I feel like every woman I've been with has done this to me. And it's just like these small, subtle actions or reactions. And he just like really opened up and spoke about how that kind of felt and how that made him feel. And we got really, really deep because I saw that like, wow, this goes way, way further than time itself. Yeah. This is something that's like rooted within us all. There's like this resentment towards men that women hold on to. And
vice versa too.
And vice versa as well. Yeah, we hold this like little bit of resentment towards each other.
Weird, competitive, resentful thing.
Yeah. And it's not ours. It's not ours to hold on to anymore. But it's there, and if we're not aware of it, it'll continue pinching each other and poking at each other if we don't communicate about it and really look at each other and release. And from this, we were able to just like literally like cry and roar and release in the most beautiful way.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. Am I missing anything?
The only thing that's coming through is I just want to just touch again. You already said this, but I just want to touch again on the fact that it doesn't belong to anyone specifically. This is old. This specific one is really old. This dynamic between men and women, this little resentment, this little habit of these little pinches, and what happens is each pinch, when it's not communicated and when it's like when the feeling comes through of that resentful feeling, if it's not dissolved, it's a little brick. It's a little tiny brick around the heart. And if that happens on a daily basis or multiple times a day, however many times, you're stacking bricks around your heart. That's what I started to feel, and that's why I felt like I really needed to communicate, because it started to become a wall as opposed to just little bricks. Those little bricks were collecting and creating a literal I literally felt myself closing off to love. And in general, not even just with you, you know. And that's why that release was so beautiful, and it was dynamic too. I mean, we were, just to give you a little insight on it, we were like outside in the rain, like screaming at the sky and like pounding on the ground, because we were doing it for all of mankind, you know? And that's what this work, another thing I wanted to touch on too, is how powerful and potent it is. It's not just for us. This literally traces back throughout existence and even beyond humanity. These energies are old, like really, really old energies. And I feel so blessed, to be aware of them. I feel like a god because I'm aware of this ancient, beyond ancient energy that's around, that's inside my body. And I'm like doing something beautiful with it. We have done something beautiful with this ancient presence, this ancient like negative presence, and
this ancient wound.
Yeah, we literally like turned it around, and it's like now it's this like glowing lotus flower. It's like so magical. So.
And this stems from like the most subtle small things, and I think something important to note is that like no matter what it is, no matter how small it is, if you feel that pinch and that like prick at your heart, a tiny little trigger, and you're like, oh, I know I'm being ridiculous, let me just push it down. Like, it is so important to communicate and to not do that, to really honor yourself and to communicate with whoever it is, so that you can really dive into love, that you can really expand your heart space rather than putting up those bricks. That's one of the most important things. No matter how small it may seem to you, it's big, because it's rooted and it's deep from those ancestral wounds. And so when we talk about this stuff, when we expose it, when we communicate, we're healing our ancestors, and we're healing
literally
all the people and children before and after us. And so this work is so important and so dear to my heart.
Me too. It's like, I mean, it's such a vast part of this journey.
Would you like any other dessert or coffee before we chop the material?
Ooh, I'll do a chocolate.
The rum, Snickers?
Sure.
Do you have here?
Do you want it here?
It's up to you. Do you want to sit and eat it and enjoy it, or we can take it to go? When are you closing?
We close at 4.
What time is it?
It's like 20.
Okay, so we'll take it to go.
Okay, you can still be here, but in a few more minutes, we will still, because we have to move everything inside.
Oh, yeah.
But no worries.
Okay.
Just to let you know that we will be
Yeah.
stuff, but it's okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes, you were talking about the value of not letting them bypass, because like, again, they're little bricks, but they add up so much. They're little, even if it's a dust particle, even if it's a tiny little thing, acknowledge it. And something I do want to say too, though, is about when interacting with others about this, depending on where you are and who that's why it's so important who you surround yourself with. But who you're surrounded with naturally is reflective of your karma, right? So this is important to acknowledge. And again, don't bring yourself to any kind of blame if you have negative people in your life. Like, don't blame yourself. Be like, oh, I must be negative. Don't go there. Remember, we're dissolving the blame thing completely. But to observe and know when is appropriate to communicate these things, if it's appropriate to communicate these things with others, because some of it maybe we can talk to somebody else who's not related or not involved with the situation. Sometimes that's helpful if you know that the person's not going to hear you, you know, because you don't want to get into this trigger battle, you know, and you don't want to go splashing in the pool. So that's really important. to acknowledge,
you.
especially if you're still sensitive.
Thank you.
Want to say?
Thank you so much.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you. Let's pull this into view. The local cacao, vegan Snickers.
Amazing. Yes, that's so beautiful to mention. And yeah, if this is someone that you're close to, that still may not, may not be able to handle this maybe, I think it's important to have the conversation before you just present the trigger. Like, hey, I felt this way when you did this. And that's another big thing is
that's great.
Is to not use you statements.
Oh, that's a big one.
So again, no blaming. So it's like, this is how I felt when this happened between us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So stating that in that way takes the blame off of you, and it creates it in a way where this is my experience and I just want to express it to you.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest things to do when going about this, but also to maybe ask, like, are you in a good space to communicate right now? I have something that's coming up for me that I want to discuss.
Yep.
Can we talk?
Yeah.
Are you available to communicate? And if not, that's okay. Let me know when you are.
Yep.
But to really create like a safe space and container to have this kind of communication process, and to go about it in a way where you're not angry, you're not in a space where you're still triggered,
right.
but you just know that trigger came up and that it needs to be communicated now.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. The setup is kind of everything. Yeah.
Yes.
Especially if you don't, like Lexi and I have a process. We know when something comes through, we're like, okay, let's do this.
And we're gonna do a workshop on it.
Yeah, we're actually probably a little course that we can take where you can explore it. But we have a process down, and we know, like I know if Lexi's feeling triggered, even before she says anything, I can acknowledge, at least in my own mind, and say she's being triggered, and I can start to show up. You know what I mean? And vice versa. If she or I says anything and says, I feel like I have something to share, then we know what to do. But if this is a new thing for you, then it's really, really important to have the setup conversation, to have the setup dialogue before it happens. And if this is like your significant other, then really, really have a conversation about this. Really talk about this and develop your own, process for working through this stuff. Like, we came up with this beautiful process that we will be sharing soon, but find a way to communicate with people about the stuff that you're going through, and remember that the goal is alchemization, is to alchemize it into something beautiful, right? It's not even just to feel better, it's about to literally transform it into something incredibly amazing. Like that experience we had with the ancestral healing thing, beyond ancestral, it was that ancient line that we tapped into. That was such a profound thing, far beyond my little trigger. My trigger was small. It was a tiny thing, it wasn't even like anything. That's why it happened for a few days, is because it was so small and it wasn't significant. And I did that thing where I'm like, oh, whatever, it's just my little shit, it's my little garbage that I have. But the point is, yeah, it's a little garbage, but you're just piling that garbage up inside, right? And then before you know it, you have this pile of garbage inside. So again, that little tiny thing brought up this enormous thing, and we did this huge healing for like all of humanity, and it's like so profound. So don't neglect any feeling that comes through. Don't neglect anything.
And the biggest thing that I just want to add to this when going about this is that you truly listen. To reach true healing and connection with whomever you're communicating with, the person who's expressing themselves needs to be heard. And so the person who's listening needs to be completely quiet, completely present, and really hold that container, that safe container in space, and not say one word until that person has said everything that they needed to say.
That is key.
Because if that doesn't happen and I interrupt them, we're not going to be able to get anywhere.
Nope. Then there's a whole nother bed of triggers there. You know what I mean? You'll bring up a whole nother thing of that little child who their parents talked over them when they tried to express their feelings. That's just a whole nother realm that you'll get into that'll cover up the subject that needs to be addressed in the moment. So thank you for saying that, because I believe is vital. It's being heard and feeling comfortable to express absolutely anything that's coming through without being judged, is key. So that silent space that you can hold for someone else while they're communicating is part of the alchemizing process. Essential.
Absolutely essential.
Vital. Yeah.
Yes. And again, we're going to we have been creating a course all about this, and so it'll all be there, and I'm super excited to offer it. But these are just a few tools that are within the course that you can start doing now.
Yeah.
And those are some of the main things to really focus on when going about this: is listening, safe space. Yeah.
Yep.
And really allowing yourself to communicate, allowing yourself to feel,
Yes.
allowing whatever is to come up, being honest about it with yourself and with the other person.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all there, and again, it seems so basic, but it's so deep. It's so deep, and like this is beyond spirituality. This is beyond earth living. This is just existence itself.
We all go through this stuff.
Everything.
Communication is a universal language. You said that the other day.
Did I?
I liked it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because it's so true.
Yeah.
We all communicate in some way.
Yep.
Something that we can all relate to.
Absolutely, and even the plants and animals go through this stuff. Everything in life goes through this same stuff. We're just communicating it in English because that's what this being expresses through. But every being is conscious. Every being feels and goes through this same stuff. So as we do this, this pulses out into the vastness of the universe. And it's so profound. You have an effect on everything in the universe. Like one cell in your body gets thrown off, and it affects every other cell in the body. One cell in the body illuminates and grows and glows, and that affects everything else in the body. And that's what we're talking about, these little seeds of love, these little seed moments of love where we transform ourselves into something beautiful and of pure loving energy. It's a miracle.
Yeah, we are living miracles, and we are really honoring ourselves by loving.
Yeah.
We're really honoring each other by choosing love.
Yep.
We're really honoring the earth by choosing love. Yeah.
Future generations, our children, the children that are emerging, we talk about this a lot too, is doing this work allows our children that are coming up to not have to do this work, and they can excel in other areas because they don't have to work through this stuff. Their journey, they can unfold whole other aspects of reality that we're unable to tap into because we have to focus on this stuff. But if we clear this aside, imagine what our children will expand into.
Oh, yes. When we purify ourselves and then give birth to new generations, they are going to... We literally give birth to who we are right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we are purified with love when we give birth, then our child will be able to live a life that is pure.
Yeah. Yeah, not to say that future if we do this work, they won't struggle, but they'll have their own sets of things, and we just set them up to, again, maybe expand deeper into art or deeper into philosophy,
right.
Or something. I think John Adams said. He said, I study politics, so my children can study economics, and my children will study economics so their children can study art.
Yeah.
And then so on through that. But we do this work now, and again I feel honored to go like through the grind in a way, and like really power through in a joyful way of reprocessing all this old stuff that's been passed down for thousands and thousands of years of humanity, not beyond humanity. It's just life, and then be able to pass on a clean slate to our children. I mean, not even just our physical children, but the children of the future.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everyone that we influence, we get to send them off, and who knows what they're going to do with life. I'm so excited to see a glimpse of what the next generations of those who are doing this work, who create new beings. I'm so excited to see what happens.
Yeah, and what I really mean about like purification is that they're purified of like our shit.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Purified of like the cycles and the conditionings and the belief systems and thoughts and habits that we were kind of born into.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's just a clear slate.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, so it doesn't mean that they're not going to struggle or not going to whatever,
Yeah.
you know, but at least we've done the work to cut off the conditionings that we've been kind of born into so that they can choose for themselves what they want to believe.
Yeah, and they can build their own karma in whatever direction that goes for them. That's their soul's journey, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is there more? That was a lot.
I think that's good.
I think it's probably good.
It's good for now.
That's actually perfect. We're at about an hour, and that's where we like to keep it. So
Yes,
Very
thank you
good.
so much for
Thank you.
listening.
Yeah, and look, if this comes out before, we're gonna do a little update. It's been a while since we did a podcast, so we're gonna do a little update podcast on just what we've been up to, and I'm not sure. You'll probably be able to find this on the same platforms, right?
Yeah. We'll post them on both YouTube and our Spotify.
All right, cool. Yeah, so you can look out for that coming pretty soon, like within the next maybe even few days.
Or like a few hours. We'll
Who knows?
probably record it.
Who knows? Yeah. So we'll be doing a little nice, fun, just a fun little lighthearted update on what we've been up to, our goals for the future, and things like that. So
Yeah, just because it's been a while.
yeah, just
We miss
catching up
you.
with y'all. We miss you
Sending you
guys.
love.
Miss doing this work, and so glad to be back in it again.
Hee.
Thank you for another sacred moment. I love you.
Love you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Adios.